One of my phone conversations with Dr. Pereira, it was after 10 o'clock at night in Spain, and he was still in the operating room. And so if you have a busy cancer surgeon who also can stand up in front of you and talk about knockout mice experiments, you've got the real deal. So congratulations, Jose. I want to thank Dr. Stephen Itzkowitz for being very, very, very patient with us. Those who know Steve know he is generally very patient, but we really appreciate you sticking with us. And Steve has really, really taken on an amazing project, which he's going to describe for you. And I think I'll just leave it at that, let him have his due. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much, Tom, and the group from Northwell, and thank you to all the survivors for really keeping us on track here with our mission. So I don't think I'll even take the 10 minutes because this is a project that's under development. It's really more of a concept, but we're making some progress, and it has to do with a kind of a bold initiative, we think, to try to develop a prospective study to study the risk factors involved in young onset colon cancer, and I've given the name CRAYON for colorectal cancer in adults of young onset. I forgot a disclosure slide, but I have no disclosures. So what is the rationale behind this? Well, we know that colon cancer rates are increasing amongst the young. We don't know why. There's many retrospective studies that are being done, both in the US and abroad, and most experts have called for prospective studies to be done, but they're difficult to do. Not that many are being done. We just heard some really wonderful examples in Europe. And there are some other prospective studies being done here, even at Sloan Kettering. But we think that there might still be room for other prospective studies to be done. And we hope that CRAYON could serve as an instrument to answer some additional questions that perhaps might not be answerable by some of the ongoing studies. So the purpose of this study is really to identify risk factors for early onset colorectal cancer, and then to use these factors to predict individuals younger than age 50 who are at higher risk of developing either current or future colorectal cancer. And why do this in New York City? This is actually not my idea. This was the idea of Dr. Tom Imperiali, who many of you know. And his idea was to do this in New York City. And why? Well, a few reasons. First of all, here in New York City, we have a track record of collaboration. You heard about the C5 Coalition, where all the institutions in all the medical centers in New York work together to do colon cancer screening, and we've made a big impact. There's also an organization called the New York Crohn's and Colitis Organization, which I helped to found about 4 years ago, where inflammatory bowel disease investigators from all of the major academic centers have been working together. We have several publications to show for it. And there's the New York Society for Gastrointestinal Endoscopy, which is more of an educational society, not a research society, but we do have a track record for the GI community working together, publishing together on studies. The other thing is that the density of population in New York City is conducive to collecting not only controls, but also colon cancer cases in a timely fashion. And data from the New York State Cancer Registry shows that there's about 350 young onset colon cancers every year in New York City alone. And then the geographic proximity. We would argue that there's a relatively shared environmental exposure. It doesn't make sense to take cases from New York City and controls from North Dakota. We would hope that maybe we could get a group of cases and controls that have relatively shared environmental exposures. And also being close to each other, this may facilitate collaboration and specimen acquisition. And most importantly, because every academic center is represented, at least in Manhattan and the Bronx, we will be able to capture patients even if they move from one institution to the next. So in New York City, a lot of patients may get diagnosed, say, at Mount Sinai, and then they may go to Sloan Kettering for their care, but it doesn't matter in this context because we are all working together and we will be able to capture them. So the history of this endeavor is in October of 2017, so over a year ago at the Roundtable Summit, Tom Imperiali was floating this idea past a bunch of us. And then it didn't really get much traction until Tom and I met for coffee at DDW, the Digestive Disease Week meeting, which is exactly a year ago. And he sort of talked me into it, and I said, okay, let's see what we can do. So when I got back from DDW, I contacted interested PIs in some of the other medical centers in June, and we had our first investigators meeting at Mount Sinai in July. We've been having monthly conference calls to really set this up. And then we had our first retreat just about 6 weeks ago. And at that retreat, the goal was really to bring together experts in epidemiology to help us really design the study. Really, before we get going in this, what is the best study design? Who should the controls be? Even before we start thinking about what kind of specimens are we going to collect and what kind of assays are we going to do. This is just foundational. So we're still asking ourselves, what questions can be answered by CRAYON? What is the best study design? And we had a long discussion, really, about cases and controls. These are the investigators in the CRAYON study. You can see investigators from Mount Sinai. Ben Lebwall is the PI at Columbia. Felicia Sussman at Weill Cornell. Robin Mendelsohn from Sloan Kettering. Peter Liang at NYU. Parthy Meyer, who's here, from Montefiore. Tom Weber, and Tom Imperiali is a, well, he was actually born and raised in New York, so he's a New Yorker, even though he's in Indiana. He's a Mets, I think he may be more of a Mets fan than a Yankees fan. At any rate, these were the outside consultants that we invited to our retreat. Christine Ambrizone from Roswell Park Cancer Institute, Margaret Dew from Sloan Kettering, Dr. Hayes from NYU, Elizabeth Cantor, also from Sloan Kettering, David Ransahoff, University of North Carolina, Becky Siegel for the American Cancer Society, and Ann Zauber. And we asked them a bunch of questions before the retreat. These are all experts, people working in the field of colon cancer and also young onset colon cancer. And we asked them many questions, but I'll just put one out here. What questions would you like to see answered by the CRAYON study? And these were some of the responses that we heard. Is the increase in colon cancer incidence caused by established risk factors or something novel? What preventable factors exist for early onset colon cancer? Is there a target risk ratio or odds ratio that would be clinically relevant in decision making, and could we reach it with better risk markers? Can we capture information regarding early life events, including in utero, early life, young adult exposures? Can we create a registry of all colonoscopies for patients under 50, including both the reason for the colonoscopy and the outcome of the colonoscopy? And to what extent does our population of young onset colon cancer patients have an unknown family history of genetic conditions such as Lynch that contributes to the development of early onset colon cancer? And can we better educate that subpopulation of their risk? So these were just some of the ideas, and we're still, we're open to suggestions, by the way, but we're still thinking about what kinds of questions can CRAYON help us answer. So this is going to be a prospective, but case control, not cohort, case control design. The cases are going to be people 25 to 49 with newly diagnosed colon cancer. And the controls we're thinking of two control groups. One control group will be people who have had a colonoscopy for whatever reason, a little bleeding, change in bowel habit, but are found to have no neoplasia. Those are called colonoscopy negative controls. And then other people who are also in the same age group who've never had colonoscopy. And we think that if we use people that are in waiting rooms, you know, people waiting, escorts for colonoscopies or surgeries or that sort of thing, they might be a more captive audience for us to get consent and even fill out questionnaires. We're also thinking about friend controls. We're going to match, it's going to be a 1 to 4 case controls, and we estimate that we need about 400 cases and 1,600 controls for adequate power. So the way we're going to go about this is we're just launching a feasibility study, which is so far only going to be at Mount Sinai, just to see how willing young people would be to engage in this kind of a study. Then we're going to spend about a year doing a pilot study, expanding this to the several sites in New York City to demonstrate that we can collaborate and refine our survey instruments, what specimens we're going to collect, how we're going to collect them, and then submit for funding in about a year for what will eventually be the main study. In the feasibility study, we're just going to have try to get 10 cases and about 40 controls and conduct interviews like, would you be willing to spend 1 to 2 hours for an initial interview? Would you be willing to complete annual follow-up surveys? We'd like to learn more about your early childhood experiences. Could we interview your parents? Would they be willing to help us? What about stool samples, saliva? Do you have baby teeth? There are analyses that could be done on baby teeth, or maybe your parents have your baby teeth. So all sorts of things that we're going to try to consider. So we're going to also have another retreat in September. It's already been arranged, the date, and from there we'll develop the pilot phase of the study. So that's pretty much our idea, and I'd be open to suggestions if anybody has them. Unfortunately, I have to leave. I won't be here tonight, or I can't be here tomorrow, but if anybody would like to get in touch with me, it's not too hard. I'm at Mount Sinai, and Tom also has my email address. So thanks very much.